Hmm. All right. May peace and power elevation to those who are out there. So, this is Tiffany coming through live in effect on today, Daily Black History, dealing with the jazz singer William Count Basie. William Count Basie. So, we're gonna look at the history of his life and what he done as far as musically and how he has contributed. So, for those of you who may not know who William Count Basie is, I'm about to show you. All right, this is William Count Basie. Okay, that's him in his later life. So William Count Basie was a jazz pianist. He was from I think Newark, New Jersey. So, and he played with some of the greatest jazz legends such as Duke Ellington. So we want to get into his history because today is his birthday. And he was born in 1901. So we're gonna talk about his legacy, his life, and all that he's done. So I want to get into the historical facts about him and what he has contributed to the jazz culture. All right, so here we go, right here. So William James Count Basie or Bessie was born August 21st of 1904, and he died on April 26th of 1984. It says he was an American jazz pianist, organist, band leader, and composer. In 1935, Basie formed his own jazz orchestra called the Count Basie Orchestra, and in 1936 took them to Chicago for a long engagement and their first recording. He led the group for almost 50 years, creating innovation like the use of two-split tenor saxophone, emphasizing the rhythm section, riffing with a big band, using arrangers to broaden their sounds, and others. Many musicians came to prominence under his direction, including the tenor saxophonist Lester Young, Herschel Evans, and the guitarist Freddie Green, trumpeters Buck Clayton, and Harry Sweet Edison, and plunger trombonist Al Gray, and singers Jimmy Rushing, Helen Holmes, Thelma Carpenter, and Joe Williams. So he was a music composer, right? And he also had his own band, which called the Count Basie Orchestra, and they were all in Chicago. And he either had mentored, people that was under his direction, such as Herschel Evans, Lester Young, and Freddie Green. So let's look in more details about his life growing up. So right here, under his biography, it says early life and education. William Basie was born to Lillian and Harvey Lee Basie in Red Bank, New Jersey. His father worked as a coachman and caretaker for a wealthy judge. After automobiles replaced horses, his father became a groundkeeper and handyman for several wealthy families in the area. Both of his parents had some type of musical background. His father played the mellophone and his mother played the piano. In fact, she gave Basie his first piano lessons. She took in laundry and baked cakes for sale for a living. She paid 25 cents a lesson for Count Basie piano instruction. The best student in school, Basie dreamed of a traveling life inspired by touring carnivals which came to town. He finished junior high school, but spent much of his time at the Palace Theater in Red Bank, where doing occasional chores gained him free admission to performances. He quickly learned to improvise music appropriate to the acts and the silent movies. It says, though a natural at the piano, Basie preferred drums. Discouraged by the oblivious talents of Sonny Greer, who also lived in Red Bank and became Duke Ellington's drummer in 1919, Basie switched to piano exclusively at age 15. Greer and Basie played together in venues until Greer set out on his professional career. By then, Basie was playing with pickup groups for dances, resorts, and amateur shows, including Harry Richardson's King of Sync, Syncopation. When not playing a gig, he hung out at the local pool hall with other musicians, where he picked up on upcoming play dates and gossip. He got some jobs in Ashbury Park at the Jersey Shore and played at the Hong Kong Inn until a better player took his place. So that's part of his early life. Now let's look at his career. What did he do? Around 1920, Basie went to Harlem, a hotbed of jazz, where he lived down the block from the Alhambra Theater. Early after his arrival, he bumped into Sonny Greer, who was by then the drummer of the Washingtons, Duke Ellington's early band. Soon, Basie met many of the Harlem musicians who were making the scene, including Willie the Lion Smith and James P. Johnson. And then go on down further, say, Basie toured in several acts between 1925 and 1927, including Katie Crippen and her Kitties, featuring singer Katie Crippen as part of the Hippity Hop show on the Columbia Burlesque, and the theater's owner, Bookers Association, Vaudeville Circus, as a soloist and accompanist to blues singer Gonzale White as Crippen, as well as Crippen. His touring took him to Kansas City, St. Louis, New Orleans, and Chicago. Throughout his tour, Basie met many jazz musicians, including Louis Armstrong, before he was 20 years old. He toured extensively on the Keith and Toba Vaudeville Circus as a solo pianist, accompanist, and music director for blues singers, dancers, and comedians. This provided an early training that was to prove significant in his later career. All right, so far he had got a chance to meet Louis Armstrong, right? And he was able to take a tour to different places from Chicago, New Orleans, and Kansas City to showcase his musical talent. So now let's see. Where else can we go? Okay, let's look down Kansas City years. So real quick, right here it says Kansas City years. The following year in 1929, Basie became the pianist with the Benny Moten Band based in Kansas City, inspired by Moten's ambition to raise his band to the level of Duke Ellington's or Fletcher Henderson's, where the Blue Devils were snappier and more bluesiest. The Moten Band was more refined and respected, playing in the Kansas City stomp style. In addition to playing piano, Basie co-arranged with Eddie Durham, who nominated the music. Their Moten Swing, which Basie claimed credit for, was widely acclaimed and was invaluable contribution to the development of swing music. And at one performance at the Pearl Theater in Philadelphia in December of 1932. The theater opened its doors to allow anyone who wanted to hear the band perform. During a stay in Chicago, Basie recorded with the band. He occasionally played four-hand piano and dual pianos with Moulton, who also conducted. The band improved with several personnel changes, including the addition of tenor saxophonist Ben Webster. All right, so he went to Kansas City, and he played with the Kansas City band, right? So he was able to make a name for himself right there in Kansas City. He built up a portfolio, if you will. So let's go ahead and let's see what else he did. Okay, so let's look at this. So now this is the John Hammond and first recordings. Okay, so Basie and band with vocalist Ethel Waters from the film Stage Door Canton, 1943. So let's see right here. It says at the end of 1936, Basie and his band, now built as Count Basie and his Baryons of Rhythm, moved from Kansas City to Chicago, where they honed their repertoire at a long engagement at the Grand Terrace Ballroom. Right from the start, Basie Band was noted for its rhythm section. Another Basie innovation was the use of two tenor saxophone players at the time. Most bands had just one. When Young complained of Herschel Evans of vibrato, Basie placed them on either side of the alto players and soon had the tenor players engaged in duels. Many other bands later adapted the split tenor arrangement. Now, I would play, but because of the copyright issue, I'm not allowed to play any music. So I don't want to get any copyright going on. I don't want to end up getting this channel shut down, so I can't play any music to give a demonstration. But obviously, this man knew how to not only play the piano, but knew how to make the arrangement in his band to give them a distinctive creative sound. And he was very creative at doing that. So let's read right here where it says, in that city in October of 1936, the band had a recording session, which the producer John Hammond later described as the only completely perfect recording session I ever had anything to do with. Hammond had heard Basie Band by radio and went to Kansas City to check them out. He invited them to record in performance which were Lester Young's earliest recordings. Those four sides were released on Volation Records under the band name of Jones Smith Incorporated. The sides were Shoe Shine Boy, Evening, Boogie Woogie, and Lady Be Good. After Volation became a subsidiary of Columbia Records in 1938, Boogie Woogie was released in 1941 as part of a four-record compilation album entitled Boogie Woogie Columbia Album C44. When he made the Vocation Records recordings, Basie had already signed with Decca Records, but did not have his first recording session with them until January 1937. So, okay. So now we're going to skip down some of the parts over here. Let's look at his family, his life. Okay. So it says, marriage, family, and death. Basie was a member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. On July the 21st of 1930, Basie married Vivian Lee Wynn in Kansas City, Missouri. They were divorced sometime before 1935. Sometime in and or before 1935, the now single Basie returned to New York City, renting a house at 111 West 138th Street, Manhattan, as a evidence by the 1940 census. He married Catherine Morgan on July the 3rd, 1940, in the King County Courthouse in Seattle, Washington. In 1942, they moved to Queens. Their only child, Diane, was born in February the 6th of 1944. She was born with cerebral palsy, and the doctors claimed she could never walk. The couple kept her and cared deeply for her, and especially through her mother's tutelage, Diane learned not only to walk but to swim. The Basies bought a home in the new whites only neighborhood of Adderley Park in 1946 on Adelaide Road and 175th Street, St. Albans, Queens. Okay. Then right here it goes on to say that on April 11, 1983, Catherine Basie died of a heart disease at the couple's home in Freeport, Grand Bahama Island. She was 67 years old. And then it goes on to say Count Basie died of pancreatic cancer in Hollywood, Florida on April 26, 1984 at the age of 79. All right. So that's a part of his legacy. That's his life. So let's look at this. Let's go down to where it says singers. Right here, it goes in and says, Basie hitched his star to some of the most famous vocalists of the 1950s and 1960s, which helped keep the big band sound alive and added greatly to his recordings catalog. Jimmy Rushing sang with Basie in the 1930s. Joe Williams toured with the band and was featured on the 1957 album 1 O'Clock Jump in 1956. Count Basie swings, Joe Williams sings with Every Day I Have the Blues, becoming a huge hit with Billy Eckstein on the album Basie and Eckstein Incorporated in 1959. And Ella Fitzgerald made some memorable recordings with Basie, including the 1963 album Ella and Basie, with the New Testament Basie band in full swing and arrangement written by a youthful Quincy Jones. So he actually worked with Quincy Jones. So Quincy Jones had got a chance to work with Count Basie. That's how he really got his start. Okay, interesting. This album proved a swinging respite from her songbook recordings and constant touring she did during this period. She even toured with the Basie Orchestra in the mid-1970s, and Fitzgerald and Basie also met on the 1979 albums A Classy Pair, Digital 3 at Montreux, and A Perfect Match. The last two also recorded live at Montreux. In addition to Quincy Jones, Basie used arrangers such as Benny Carter, Neil Hifty, and Sammy Nestico. All right. Okay, then it says Basie also recorded with Tony Bennett in the 1950s. Their albums together include Person and Strike Up the Band. Basie also toured with Bennett, including a date at Carnegie Hall. Other notable recordings were Sammy Davis Jr., Bing Crosby, and Sarah Vaughan. One of Basie's biggest regrets was never recording with Louis Armstrong, though they shared the same bill several times. In 1968, Basie and his band recorded an album with Jackie Wilson titled Manufacturers of Soul. Wow, and that's interesting. Okay, so legacy and honors. All right, so this is the Count Basie Theater in Randbank, New Jersey. That theater was named after him. All right, so and then goes on to say he received an honorary doctorate from Berklee College of Music in 1974. McCain Street, where he grew up with his family, has the honorary title of Basie, Count Basie Way. In 2009, Edgecombe Avenue and 160th Street in Washington Heights, Manhattan, were renamed as Paul Robeson Boulevard and Count Basie Place. The corner is located at, it's the location of 555 Edgecombe Avenue, also known as the Paul Robeson Home, a National Historic Landmark where Count Basie also lived. Wow. In 2010, Basie was inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame. In October of 2013, version 3.7 of WordPress was code named Count Basie. In 2009, Basie was inducted into the Blues Hall of Fame. And on June of 25th of 2019, the New York Times Magazine listed Count Basie among hundreds of artists whose material was reportedly destroyed in the 2008 Universal Fire. And it goes on the asteroid 35394 Count Basie, discovered by astronomers at Kosovo in 1997, was named after him. The official naming citation was published by the Minor Planet Center on November 8th of 2019. All right. So that's his legacy and that's his honorary. So his legacy live on, and there's buildings named after him, there's programs named after him, and all that good stuff. So, and then let's look down to that. There's more information. Grammy Hall of Fame. All right, so here's the reference right down here at the bottom. Okay. So let's look up more information and see what we can find. Okay, so there's Count Basie, Eddie Davis Trio plus Joe Newman. Okay, that's Count Basie right here. And it's an article that came from wildina.com. So today is August 21st of 2020. It says happy 116th birthday to Count Basie. Today is the 116th birthday of the multi Grammy winning musician and band leader Count Basie. His band's music is part of the soundtrack of the American story. The world is a better place because he was in it and still feel the loss that he has left. All right, that's him. All right, so this is the website. It says it got the list of the name with the people that he had worked with. So let's see if we can find something else on here. Mm. Okay. So it says he won the Grammy. Best Jazz Performance Group 1958. Best Performance by a dance band 1958. Best Performance by a band for dancing. Best Performance by an orchestra for dancing. That was 1963. Best Jazz Performance by a soloist. Instrumental 1976. Best Jazz Performance by a big band 1977. Best Jazz Instrumental Performance, Big Band 1980. Best Jazz Instrumental Performance, Big Band 1982. Best Jazz Instrumental Performance, Big Band 1984. And he won the Hall of Fame Award in 1979, the Hall of Fame Award in 1985, the Hall of Fame Award in 1992, and the Lifetime Achievement Award in 2002. Okay. All right, so that's him. And this is his autobiography right here. It's called Good Morning Blues, the autobiography of Count Basie. All right, so right here he talks about the Blue Devils, and he says this is in 1927 to 1929. He said the first time I ever heard the Fabulous Territory Band from Oklahoma City, known as the Blue Devils, was one midsummer morning out in Tulsa. I was lying in bed upstairs in the Red Wing Hotel, which was really a two-story boarding house right across Greenwood Avenue from the Dreamland Theater, where I was working as the piano player on the tuba circus in the vaudeville show billed as Gonzo White and the Big Jazz Jamboree. And he said back in those days, the tuba was the main entertainment business network serving colored people. It was really a string of independent show places like the old Lincoln Theater in Harlem, the Howard in Washington, Bailey's 81 in Atlanta, and the Lyric in New Orleans, the Palace in Memphis, the Booker T. Washington in St. Louis, and some others. The initial stood for Theaters Owners Booking Association, but there were some performers who used to say those letters meant tough on black artists, and to some others that mean tough on you. You know what part of the autonomy the anatomy. As for myself, I was having the time of my life just being a road show musician, and all of the ups and downs were part of the game. Right, he said, after all these years, I still haven't forgot how the Blues Devil sounded that morning in Tulsa. And I also remember that at a first I thought I was hearing a phonograph record. I am pretty sure that it was around 11 o'clock. I don't think it was any later than that because I hadn't come in until after break daybreak, and it seemed as if I just closed my eyes. I know for sure that the weather was very hot and sticky that day, and I was not just tired and sleepy, but also I'll just say a little groggy from a little too much sampling of a local beverage called chalk that I just recently been introduced to in a back alley joint where I had been hanging out every night after closing time at the Dreamland. So it took me a minute or so to realize that I was awake. All right, so that's his autobiography. Okay. It's called Good Morning Blues. Autobiography of Count Basie as told to Albert Murray. Uh right, so that's that. Okay, and then here's some more article right here. from Cambridge University Press. It's called Count Basie and the Piano That Swings the Band. Arthur Mark Tucker. It was written in a source called Popular Music, 1985, Volume 5, Continuity and Change, 1985, page 45 and 74. Right? Okay, so Count Basie and the Piano That Swings the Band. So I'm going to read this little first part right here. It says, in 1932, after a run of hard luck on tour, jobs that evaporated, buses that broke down, money that ran out, the Kansas City Orchestra of Benny Moulton headed for Camden, New Jersey to record for Victor. The session produced 10 sides, among them a piece bearing the leader's name, Moulton Swing. Guitarist and trombonist Eddie Durman had come up with the arrangement in Philadelphia not long before, constructing a series of brass and reed riffs over the chord changes of Walter Donaldson's hit song 1930, You're Driving Me Crazy. The opening of Moulton Swings featured the band pianist William Bill Basie. After an 8-bar introduction, Basie played the following passage, accompanied only by the rhythm section of bass, guitar, and drums. For the symbols used in the transcription, see the appendix. All right, so that's his musical. That's his music right here. His musical chorus. Well, that's multi swings. And it says the next time Basie recorded Multi Swing, it was 1940. Much had happened in the interims. Moulton had died in 1935. Basie had taken over the remnants of his band and for a while led a stripped down 9-piece version of Kansas City Reno Club. Then came increased exposure through radio broadcast, important engagement in Chicago and New York, expansion in the band's ranks, and a 3-year recording contract with Decca. Pianist Bill Basie had become the famous band leader Count Basie, and his playing sound different too. So that his chorus right there. And that's all I just wanted to show you guys, so you can check it out for yourself. Here's the source right here. Go down to the bottom. Let's see what else I can find. All right, so here's some references down here. All right. That's the information. And that's that. So here's the thing. Jazz and blues, you can kind of say they intertwine with each other. Because when you speak of blues, you actually speak of jazz. And when you're speaking of jazz, you're actually speaking of blues. But they have a distinctive sound too. But see, let's break down what blues is. Blues is basically dealing with songs that's pretty much sad, depressing. That's the reason why it's called blues, because it's more about it's more of dealing with your feeling, your emotion, or how you feel, as far as like if you're in a sad mood, if you in a very loving mood, like if you want to, you want somebody to serenade you or something like that. You know what I mean? So it was an expression from a very I'm trying to think of the word that I want to use. I can't even think of the word I want to use right now, but yeah, so most of the time when you listen to blues, it's mostly pertaining to like sad stuff, right? Like somebody say I have the blues, meaning that I don't feel I'm not really in a total good mood. I'm just more like I'm more drained or I feel depressed or something. So, you know what I'm saying? That's how blues really was. And then jazz was more like live and up tempo and everybody got down and danced and had a good time and whatnot. But then again, they were also intertwined with each other too. But blues and jazz was very popular in places like New Orleans and Memphis, Chicago, and Mississippi. They all had their own sound. So, and during the 30s and the 40s, all the way up to the 50s, jazz and blues were the most dominant genre of that time period, and that's where a lot of African Americans showcased their talent. All right, you had the ragtime jazz, you had the funk jazz, you had all these different type of jazz that came about later on. But yeah, African Americans showcased their talents through using jazz and blues. They were able to play with instruments such as the trumpet, the saxophone, the clarinet, the flute, the piano, uh, the violin, the bass violin, bass guitar, the tuba. So many of them had those multiple talents, and you had so many great names that came out of there. Maybe one of these days I can do information on the culture of jazz and blues and the origins and how they came about. So one of these days I can do that. But today I just wanted to focus on William Count Basie because today is his birthday, his born day, and we just want to commemorate him. So may peace and power elevation be to you guys. Thank you all for watching. And I hope you all have a wonderful day or afternoon or whatever your time zone may be. Please be careful out here. Take it easy on yourself. Until next time, we will reconnect. All right. So with that being said, deuces. Thank you so much. And I will talk to you guys later. All right.